lovely good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us just like that on Camnet TV. I'm Tapelo Joe Smarter. Now this afternoon, like we said, that we'll be dedicating our programming to the legacy and life of former president, the 6th Republican president, Dr. EDGAR LUNGU, and to help us go through the highlights of his political career and also some of the people that interacted with him. Today I have on set this afternoon Madam Savoy Mboera. She is the NDC president. Madam, good to see you and welcome.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Okay, good to have you here. Now, Madam, I know that you and the former head of state have interacted on a number of occasions. We saw when you joined UCA, we saw there are some pictures that will be showing you where you were in meetings with him, interacted with him. But let me find out, as a female politician and president, how was your interaction with the 6th Republican president?
Well, my interaction with him was actually very, very good. You know, I remember, first of all, it started before 2021. You know, there was a time that the PF really wanted me to join the party. So they would call me and they were like, no, President Lungu is saying this and that. Okay. You know, but during that time, I didn't really get to see him. You know, but of course, I would see his representatives, you know, Rajin Kapata, who's this... Kaiser Zulu by then. I would even, actually, there's a time I even went to State House and things like that, you know, but of course I was like, I'm not ready to make a move to join another party and things like that. But after the 2021 elections, you know, with the coming in of a new government and everything, and then the formation of UCA, we really got to interact, you know. And even before the formation of UCA, he's yet another person who would always say, I love Savoy because she speaks for everybody, you know. There was a time when, after the UPND won, a lot of people went quiet. They couldn't really speak for a number of reasons, you know. So there were a good number of us yet again who were speaking at that time. And with that, he really liked what I was saying and everything, you know, to the point where when I had police call-outs, he really supported me. I remember even getting a call from Makebi Zulu by then, and was saying, the president is saying that if you go to Kabompo, there were those rumors that were supposed to take me to Kabompo, and he's like, he's saying, we'll go together, we'll escort you, you'll be there when the entourage is escorting you, you know. Yeah, when there were those issues of jogging, you know, there's time that you love jogging a lot, and he'd invite me. I would go there with members of NDC, go and jog with him, you know, things like that. Yes, exactly.
Let's look at the jogging part. How was the time of the jogging? Because I myself never had an opportunity as a journalist, obviously, to go on one of his morning runs. But how were they? How would you describe them?
You know, the jogging, when people would say that President Lungu is very fit, I thought they were joking.
Okay.
You know, the man would jog. He would never stop. You know, he was very, very fit. Some of us, you'd run from here to there, you're tired, you're panting, you feel like you're going to faint, you know. And I remember the only woman who would jog as well as him, let me say the long distance and just manage the whole time, was Tasila. So jog to say like daughter like son, like daughter like father rather, you know. So yeah, so that was the situation. He was very fit and he would jog, you know, back and forth. Everyone was like, wow, this man, you know, yeah. But of course, after those exercises, then would sit with NDC. Later on, I'd have one-on-one meetings with him and we'd talk. He was really, really a uniting force in the opposition. You know, we had time to call a number of us as opposition political party leaders, go visit him, and he would tell us mainly about unity, to say we need to get united. You know, and at that time we'd also talk about the formation of an alliance. It was like, going to formalize an alliance by next year, you know, things like that. So basically the interaction with him, it was that of a father, you know, a mentor, you know, and one thing I loved about him so much, by the way, is the fact that he could openly tell you the mistakes he felt he made. You know,
the time exactly
in UCA, yes. With the time we were in UCA after I had lost power. When we would sit, and they say experience is the best teacher, and sometimes that's what we miss. You know, because I normally see in Zambia when somebody's a former president and they want to advise, they'll be like, no, you can't tell us this, you messed up in this area or that area.
Is that a good thing, Madam Mboya?
It's not a good thing, because when somebody has experience, it means they've got experience of doing something wrong and something right.
Okay.
You know, yes. So with President Lungu, he was magnanimous enough to say, I feel here I made a mistake, I should have done ABCD. Okay. So that you're learning, you know. You'd also tell us about the presidency itself, to say this seat is like ABCD. I remember the time we talk about getting the leader for UCA. He would tell us to say we should make sure that the person we choose does not become a dictator, because that seat has got too much powers. Okay. So let's do this, let's do that, let's do that. Yeah, so that's kind of that was the kind of a person that he was, a person who was not scared to say, I think I made a mistake here. And I think the Zambians have seen him to say, there have been even videos where he has come out in the open to say, I think we made a mistake here.
Yes.
You know, the cadarism, the this, the that, I think we should not have done that. He has come out in the open. That is why when he comes out to advise people, it's because he knows the dangers of certain things. He knows the right paths. Okay. So the criticism which I've seen, for example, from other people, whereby they would say, no, he can't say this, he can't say this because he also did this and that. Yeah, because he saw certain things, the right and wrong directions. He becomes the best person. You know, that number one, the opposition, number one, gained from, and also even the ruling party. They should have taken advantage of that to say, this is the only living former head of state, and we do have a lot to learn from him.
Okay. Madam Imboela, we do have some photos that we've been flashing on our TV screen. Can I have one of those photos? This particular photo, just kindly tell us, Madam Imboela, where was this? What was the event? What was the occasion? And how do you describe this particular photo? We can see you listening attentively to the sixth Republican president there. Just kindly tell us, what was the occasion?
Yeah, the occasion here, this was at the funeral of Bishop Ndlovu, the former Bishop of Bigoka. Yes, we had gone there for that funeral. So went there, I was saying hi to him, and then we sat as usual. So he started talking, and if you see the video for that photo, I think I was laughing a lot there. Because that's another thing about him, was a very, very humorous person. You know, so the actual video, there's a lot of laughing in that particular piece, So, that was basically it at that funeral, and then he started just talking a few things here and there about politics generally. Okay,
let's go to another photo. I think we have two. I saw two. Let's go to the other photo where Madam Imboela is pictured with the sixth Republican president. As we get ready for that photo, how would you like to remember him?
Number one, you know, his humility was, I think, out of this world. You know, when people say that he was a very, very humble person, he really was. Okay. You know, there are very few people that were as humble as he was. No wonder people that came into contact with him, they'd be like, you know what, this man, this is just something else, you know. And for me, that should be remembered for it. His generosity, was a very generous person. His kindness, you know, he really had a heart for the people. You know, I was telling somebody just this morning to say, people don't even realize that there would be people whereby they'll be going through a lot and will actually come in and help out without even the person knowing. Yes. But I remember even the time that we were in Oka.
Now talking about Oka, that particular photo, we can see you laughing there. Did you crack some jokes?
Yes, as always.
Okay, nice.
As always, really love to crack jokes a lot,
So viewers, you can come through before Madam Savoy Imboela continues. You can come through and give us a call and tell us your fond memories of the sixth Republican president. We are remembering and celebrating his life right here on Camnet TV. In this session, we do have Madam Savoy Imboela, NDC president, and obviously she's telling us her experiences, interactions, and the jokes of the sixth Republican president who went to be with the Lord yesterday. You may continue, Madam Imboela.
Oh, yes, please. Yeah, so I was saying that sometimes even helping people, you know, he really had that heart for the people. There would be somebody, maybe the person has been in the cells 2-3 weeks, they're not getting legal representation, they're not coming out. I remember 2-3 occasions I would come maybe on the UCA blog and say, have you heard about this person? This person has not really been out, you know, that has not been taken out after, you know, being taken by the police cells. And sometimes I would get calls direct from relatives to say, this relative of ours, this is what is going on. So I'd put on the UCA blog to say, this is what is going on. And you'd see 5-10 minutes later, President Lungu would come on the blog and say, you know what, I've called Makebi Zulu, please contact him and everything.
Just like that?
Just like that, yes. And he would go in, help out. I would call the relatives myself and say, this lawyer will come to and will help you out. And the relatives would not even know. Some of those people that have been helped don't even know that it was actually President Lungu that helped them. They just saw Makebi coming to the court and he helped them out, and something was sorted out like that. That's the kind of person, that he was. When he saw a problem and he could help, he really went out of his way, to do that, So for me, his generosity, his heart for the people, his humility, his magnanimity, like I said earlier on, to share, to ensure that you do the right things, He was not scared to say, I made a mistake here, I did the right thing here, and this is what you do. So those are among the key areas where people should remember him for. And also, he was, I think, to me, the biggest uniting factor in the opposition. For now, I think the opposition also have to really sit and see how do we move from here, and that also, I would like to urge the Tonse Alliance as well as the PF to really put aside their differences, at a time like this. This is a make or break. I know that in leadership, there are normally conflicts amongst the people. I've been telling people of late to say, it's only when I became NDC president that I realized that even the story of Solomon in the Bible is not so much about wisdom, but about conflict resolution. Yes. Yes, when you're a leader, I think one of the biggest tasks you have is conflict resolution. So I know that President Lungu, just by him being around, he was able to resolve that conflict. And now that is not there, how is the Tonse Alliance and the PF going to resolve some of the conflicts, for example, which they have or which may arise? So the country is looking forward to a kind of opposition that will honor the memory of the later 6th Republican president. So number one, the PF have to do certain things in his honor, even the things that you don't like, but to say this is what he would have done. Yes. Tonse Alliance and also the opposition in general. UCA also, as a first alliance that he co-founded,
yes.
He really had the heart for the alliance. When we started UCA, Mr. Tapero, we would have meetings sometimes from 10 hours all the way to 20, 21 hours.
Wow.
Yes, we are just seated, yes. We'll just stand up to go and eat. And it's not a person who would say, I've got another meeting, I'll leave. He would be there, that's how committed he was.
Okay.
He would be there, and the only times he would stand up to go and eat, and we are back. And we would never even want to leave the meetings. I get to the point. We would have meetings 7, 8 long hours. And the president, the former president, would be there the whole time without leaving. So that was the level of commitment that he had to the alliance, and to making sure that he united. So with UCA, with Tonse, the opposition in general, I think it's very, very important that we honor his memory and ensure that people unite, for the sake of liberating the Zambians.
Okay. Madam Imboela, let me find out. You're coming from an opposition political party. My question is, we have a lot of opposition political party leaders, presidents. What should they learn or emulate from former President EDGAR Lungu, but most importantly, the 6th Republican president of the Republic of Zambia? What should they learn from him? Okay. What's the takeaway?
Okay. The takeaway from him is the issue of a servant leadership, if I should call it that.
Okay.
You don't have to put yourself as number one, Servant leadership, be sometimes the last. That's why even the whole humility comes in. Even the Bible says that those that will really put themselves low, God will uplift them. You get the point? Yeah, it's from the humility that people actually raises leaders. So the servant leadership he had, the heart for the people that he had, yes. It's not about getting into power to see how you can enrich yourself, how you can do this, how you can do that. What is it that you want to do for the Zambians? So the people that are in opposition right now, the people that are in the ruling party right now, they should really see and assess their mission and vision for the Zambian people. What are the Zambians benefiting from their leadership? President Lungu, I think, taught us a lot in terms of that. For me, I've been saying that even when it comes to his weaknesses, for example, some weaknesses which people are trying to really shove out there. For me, even the weaknesses came out not so much from bad intention, but from good intention. The good person that he was, the leader that he was, whereby he wants to listen to everybody, he wants to accommodate everybody, that also, I think, it led to some people taking advantage, you know. And for that, maybe he was not the firm disciplinarian that some people would have wanted him to be. So maybe that also caused a few things here and there, you know. But what to learn from him is that a leader can actually accommodate everyone, because he did accommodate everyone, you know, to the point whereby, again, some people don't like and would not like, they never like to see him with other people. I get to the point. Just being seen with President Lungu, for example, it caused a lot of tension with certain people, because he was a person that was able to accommodate everyone. And with that, people didn't like. But to be honest with you, if you are a leader, if you want to do the right thing for the country, I think you need to be that kind of a person that is able to be with everybody else.
Okay. From the politician's perspective, Madam Mboela, how should all the politicians in the ruling party, in the opposition, honor the memory of this gallant son of the soil? How should they go about it? The
way they should go about it is, number one, respect his legacy, you know, and unite during this time and after the funeral, and give him a befitting funeral and burial. I've seen one or two statements. I won't get into details, but I've seen one or two statements already which have gotten me so concerned. You know, so concerned. And if we go in certain directions, I think it won't really be good for the country. You know, it's very, very important that we honor him. Sometimes it may not be even something that we like, but we should ask ourselves, what is best for him and his legacy? What would he have done himself? And with that also, we need to ensure that we do things properly. Number one, if I should maybe mention just one area, we all know in this country that President Lungu and President HH never saw eye to eye, you know. But there's a thing where being a state funeral that it is or that it should be, there's a thing, for example, where government comes in, there's a thing where the family comes in, his party. Let's see that unity, you know. We don't want to see the kind of things, for example, which the government does. I'll start with the government. The government, even with the President Nawapi's funeral, for example, if you look at even the protocol, they distort the protocol. We saw from the funeral program where, for example, they recognize the members of the Central Committee of the UPND. Yes, on the program, you know, where guests are coming in, you see members of the Central Committee of the UPND. We never saw members of the Central Committee of the FTT. You know, don't politicize the funeral. This funeral, for example, is a funeral of the PF, of the Tonsi Alliance. So if you are going to recognize our politicians, are going to recognize the family and the way, for example, protocol should be done, recognize where he belonged to, first and foremost. Then everybody else in terms of the opposition will fall into there. You know, you can't at a state funeral, for example, with President Lungu, if the government takes over, then protocol-wise, you recognize UPND, you fail to recognize the PF, or you fail to recognize the alliance which he belonged to. That's number one. Number two, also now to his party. You know, there's certain things that the government should do, whether they like it or not, because it's not their money, and it's not like they're doing him a favor. The fact that he was president of this country, he's entitled to certain things. So allow that process to happen. It should not be that because they did ABCD to him, we're upset. We don't want to allow them to do ABCD. We're all upset with the way they are treating him.
It shouldn't work that way.
No, it shouldn't work like that way, no. So on both sides, you know, and I hope the family really is going to be strong with this. You know, I know how politicians can come in and influence certain things, but for me, I'm really, really praying at this moment in time, let us all be united and ensure that the sixth Republican president is given his befitting funeral. Then afterwards, the politics can arise, you know, because we want the government to do what it is that they're supposed to do. We want the PF, the Tonse, the opposition to do what it is that they're supposed to do. The family, you know, this is a mourning time and everything, and trust me, they can be put to all sorts of sides. The other sides, they're pulling this side, they're pulling all sorts of sides. You know, we don't want that.
So politics should come after.
Let it come after. Let us give him the befitting funeral that he deserves.
Madam Mboela, the people of Zambia are watching right now. You being a vibrant female politician and president of an opposition political party, during this time of mourning, Madam Mboela, what's your message to them? How do you comfort the Zambian people, the family, Mama Esther Lungu, the former First Lady? What's your message to the family and to the entire Zambians?
Well, the message, first of all, to the family, sincere condolences. You know, you have lost a very good man. you know. People say that normally for everybody who dies, but President Lungu was really a good man, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, you have lost a very good man, a good father, you know, a good husband, you know, a good leader for the country. The loss is something which we can't even describe, you know. I mentioned earlier on that he is, you know, he was the biggest uniting factor in the opposition. And for me, his death should not cause a split which will cause the opposition to never ever unite at all. But it should be at this defining moment that people should actually say, for the sake of his legacy, let us come together and see what we can do. You know, to the family, I know President Mama Esther Lungu is a very prayerful woman. Continue praying, Madam. This time is a time whereby we are so lost for words, we don't even know the right words to say. But we know that God will give you the strength, you know, that surpasses human understanding. You know, the family, you know, Tasila and everybody else, you know, you have lost a great father. And we can't describe, really. We know how you must be feeling, you know, or rather we can only imagine how you must be feeling at this moment in time. And the sad part, like I said earlier on, politicians may come in and try to pull you in all sorts of directions. But remember what your father stood for. Remember what your husband stood for. And remember that at this moment in time, we need to give him that befitting funeral. Be it the opposition, be it the ruling party, whatever people might be planning, just ensure that as a family, you stay strong and give him a befitting funeral. You know, the sad part sometimes is that when you're so close to a person and you have to give them a kind of funeral that they deserve, sometimes I have, for example, been part of funerals, maybe of very close friends, whereby somebody has died and you have to do everything perfectly for the funeral. Even the mourning is disturbed, and you are really working hard to ensure that everything is in order. And then you start mourning afterwards when everybody is buried, because now that's when you breathe and say, okay, everything has gone on well. Then you mourn afterwards, you know. So even this moment in time, some of you, your mourning may even be disturbed because of what you have to do, the decisions you have to make. It's okay. You mourn now, you mourn later. But trust me, at this moment in time, this defining moment, that responsibility to ensure that the legacy of your father, of your husband, is safeguarded, is actually in your hands as a family more than anybody else. Okay.
Before we let you go, Madam Mboela, your fellow politicians are watching out there, and some are saying what you're saying regarding the politicians not taking advantage of this situation to gain political mileage or social media clout. What is your word to them as well, the politicians? Your word of caution to them as we mourn and remember the legacy of the 6th Republican president?
The funeral is only a few days, or it may even be weeks, and that's it. You know, then we have forever now to deal with what it is that will happen now. So these few days that we have, you know, to safeguard this legacy, we have to really respect it. You know, social media right now, anybody and everybody can go to social media and write whatever it is that they want. And at this moment in time, it's a time where people can really divide people. For example, I've seen what is this official mourning place? They've said it's a PF secretariat. Then at the house, only foreign dignitaries and family. You know, I saw somebody when I was coming here. They were saying, of course, you can call, and there are all those things happening. You know, whatever it is that is being discussed and decisions which are being made. Of course, everything is being done for a reason. You know, and also the comments that people are giving and everything. You know, there's so much that is being said. You know, but for me, the most important thing is that as we do everything that we are doing, let us remember who he was and what he stood for. You know, he was the only surviving former head of state. You know, and with him gone now, we don't have a former head of state. And it's not like they grew so old that they died because they were old. No, Zambia is a young republic, you know. And if you look at President Lungu, the former President Chiluba, you know, these people died young, you know. These are people that could have lived longer lives, but they died. So there's a reason why all these things are happening, you know. So as a nation, yes, let's come together, let's unite, let's pray for our country, There are so many things that normally divide us, and if we are not careful, a funeral is one of those things that can really divide us even further.
Okay.
But let us use this funeral of our sixth Republican president to unite us. Number one, as politicians. Number two, as a nation. Because I know that President LUNGU would have really, really loved to see a united kind of Zambia. And like where people want to use his funeral for social media clout, you know, to come up with all sorts of things. This one is denouncing this one, this one. Really, it's not time for that.
Okay. Madam Wimbuela, thank you so much for your patience and for giving us time to talk to us this particular afternoon as we mourn. And remember the legacy of the sixth Republican president. Can I give you a minute to give your last words?
Oh, that'd be very good. Thank you.
Okay, please, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. One thing about President LUNGU, also, I'm sure everybody knows that he loved light moments. You know, he loved entertainment. You know, I've been an entertainer myself in this country, and I remember even in the, I would talk to artists. By the way, I'd say that if there's a person that would change the arts industry, is this one. So before he even leaves office, make sure that you utilize his presidency in that regard. And I'm sure when he left the presidency, people have seen that in terms of art, there's a way and a certain direction that it has gone, which could have been different had he been there. You know, President LUNGU was a person who loved to joke, you know, was a person who loved bringing people together, you know, and these things for me are things which even as opposition, as a country right now, we should continue doing. You know, it doesn't mean that when you are in a particular seat, for example, if you're a leader, you have to be too serious. You know, you can't joke, you can't have a light moment, you know, you can't have a small dance. Yeah? You know, so for me, all those things are things that really made the man that he was. Even as we remember him, we should remember the jovial person that he was. We should remember the uniting force, you know, that he was. We should remember the kindness, the generosity, the heart for the people. We're going to honor him and give him that befitting send-off that he really deserves.
Okay, Madam Wimbuela, thank you so much. And thank you to you, the viewers. We'll quickly go on a short break. When we come back, we continue with the Lunchtime Cafe. Please do stay tuned. we're starting. Celebrating the legacy of the 6th Republican President of Zambia. Bishop, good to see you, and may I offer my condolences knowing how closely you worked with the former head of state.
Well, thank you very much, and we should really convey our condolences once again to the LUNGU family and to the entire nation. This is a very, very solemn moment. It's a difficult time for the entire nation, and we're praying that the Lord will grant His comfort to the family and His comfort to the nation, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to the President and his leadership and the team as well. This is a very, very tough moment for the whole nation, and we're grateful that we're not alone.
Okay.
The Lord is with us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Bishop, take me back to yesterday when you received the news of the 6th Republican President going to be with the Lord. What was your initial impression or reaction?
Obviously shock. It's heavy. It was a major shock for me, and I called out to my wife and shared the news because she was in another part of the house, and so up to now, it's you wake up and you realize, okay, it has happened. Definitely not expected at this time.
Okay. Take us back to the first time you met the 6th Republican President. How was the interaction?
Well, when I first met the president, he was not president. Mm-hmm. I met him when he was minister at that time. He was minister. In fact, way before that, I even mix up the times now. Mm-hmm. Way before that, because his daughter was in our church for a good while. She's our daughter in the faith.
Okay.
And a son in the faith.
Okay.
We wedded them.
Mm-hmm.
So I can take you back now. That would be, those are the times.
Mm-hmm.
So it's way before he got into these prominent positions.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I've known him as somebody who has been very, very straightforward with life, down to earth, relating to people in a very straightforward manner.
Okay.
At that time, of course, people know that he was a practicing lawyer, and out there in public, in private practice. Yeah, so it goes far back.
Okay.
For me.
Okay. Now, Bishop, how has been your interaction over the years? What kind of a man was he when he interacted with faith leaders such as you? Mm-hmm. What kind of a man was he?
President Lungu was very respectful of clergy and men of God. That was my experience with him. He listened where you were expressing something specific, and he was always conscious of the need to be guided. I remember him making comments many times. He sometimes referred to me as his brother, and he'd say, my brother, don't leave us politicians alone. Tell us, because we can get excited with power, and we can do all kinds of things. That his attitude was always one of wanting to learn, wanting to be guided, and therefore I was not surprised when he finally called for the fact that we should be looking at trying to consolidate the declaration of Zambia as a Christian nation, because that is something he was aware we value as Christians and as clergy, and so we were very grateful to see how he gave room to that particular arrangement, making a pronouncement that was formalized through Parliament, and then of course us having the actual National Day of Prayer, fasting, reconciliation, repentance and reconciliation. Yeah, so that was generally his approach.
Okay, let's go to the Day of National Prayer and Fasting and Reconciliation. We know for a fact that you being one of should I use the top faith leaders in Zambia, obviously you played a role in this particular day. But when this idea came to you, Bishop, when you heard the news of Zambia being declared a day being dedicated for prayer and fasting, how did it make you feel? What was your reaction? Because it was done during his tenure. What was your reaction?
Well, first of all, the reaction was that we felt this was timely,
okay,
and that it had a place in the nation. Why? Because we have to go back to how privileged we have been as a nation to have leaders and presidents who have always been open to the lordship of Jesus Christ and the utilization of Christian values in order to run the nation. And so when you go back to our first president and how he many times referred to the principles of the Bible, and good neighborliness, and the fact that he always talked about the dignity of man, and he borrowed most of those principles from the Bible. That heritage is there. And when we look at the second Republican president, President Chiluba, who then declared Zambia as a Christian nation. I'm going back that way just so we can be able to understand and see the value of the blessing we have had as a nation. Okay. And then when you go to number 3, and how he himself, as President Manawasa, how he himself also applied an aspect of his own faith and upheld Zambia as a Christian nation, but you remember that he went ahead and publicly got baptized.
Yes.
That's a serious expression of a testimony of faith. And you go on to number 4, and you look at the opportunity that God gave us through President Sata and his declaration of wanting to rule by the 10 commandments. And you know that he related well with President LUNGU, whom we are mourning today. But all that is something we need to celebrate, because we see how the value of having leadership that actually sees itself as giving room to God. And so if we fast forward and then we take the opportunity now that you've asked me to discuss the pronouncement of the 18th of October as a day of national prayer and repentance and reconciliation, it was welcomed by us. We welcomed it because we felt that this was now a consolidation of the declaration of Zambia as a Christian nation, And when that day finally came and we were gathered in the showgrounds, and the president himself came together with many, many prominent leaders within the nation and the cross-section of the Zambian citizenry coming from the churches, from ordinary life. It was wonderful to see how the halo circled the sun. Now, there was a lot said about that phenomenon.
What do you say about it, Bishop?
Well, what we say about it is that for us, despite the fact that a lot is attached to that and many occurrences, the occurrences in history, for us, we saw that as a sign of God sovereignly smiling over Zambia, because the firmament and the galaxies out there, what we refer to as nature,
yes,
is really under his hands. And so we believe that the Lord allowed that phenomenon to occur with a sign of remembrance, taking us back to the times when God interacted with humanity in the days of Noah and the rainbow. He's just showing again God's approval and indication of peace. And so the halo to us was similar to God coming after a flood time like he did for Noah, and saying to us at a time when Zambia was going through some serious challenges economically here, and to say that your prayers have been heard and that my presence is over you. So we felt that that was an endorsement of his lordship and his reception of the prayers of God's people on that day. But I must hasten to mention that we were conscious then, and we still are now, that this was not just about a day. This was about understanding the heart of a leader. Sat with President Edgar Lungu and heard his cry and his desire to really establish the clarity of the role of the Lord in the nation. Because then, after the 28th, what happened on the 18th, on the 25th of October, we moved on to break ground at the location that is now considered the location for the National House of Prayer. His desire was that there would be a temple and a house open to all citizens, all denominations. And then he set up a team of people, and I was privileged to be selected by my colleagues. He appointed 12 people, but then at the first meeting, as we met together with the other colleagues, other leaders, I was then requested by my fellow leaders to take up chairmanship of the board of the National House of Prayer, with the late Kutamanza as the vice. So it was a privilege to be able to lead that team. But during those times, there was interaction with the president, and we wanted to hear from him. So what was on his heart? He just said, please, work out the details and the arrangements so that this thing can be a gift to Zambia. So we began to work towards developing that as a trust, so that it would remain as a trust, and it would be able to be a gift to the whole nation, open to all denominations, so that people would have a place and an altar where the nation can gather. Now, I'm saying all this because you've asked me the question, what was it like hearing him, talking with him? This was part of the expression of his heart, the desire to see the nation coming together, calling upon God. And knowing that he had come through to the place of presidency by some challenge and some contention that had gone on within their own party, I think he was conscious to trying to see how there could be a greater level of unity and in closing the gap. And I can say this safely because I was privileged. On the night when there was so much tension in the nation, I was privileged to have been requested by the then acting president, Dr. I'm sorry.
Dr. Guy Scott?
Dr. Guy Scott, I'm sorry, but this is, as we're going through this,
Please.
it's just the human side of us, and I cannot, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I was privileged to be asked by Dr. Guy Scott to chair a meeting in which the two factions within the Patriotic Front were able to come together. I'm sorry, I've had to be a little bit emotional because I do recall that as I talked to President Lungu and expressed the fact that we needed to look beyond their party and look at bringing the nation together. He sitting on this side and Dr. Guy Scott on the other side. It had to take those two magnanimous leaders to shake hands in that room and to agree that somebody was bigger than them.
Amidst the tension.
Amidst the tension. And you see, the air changed in that room. And I give it up to Dr. Scott as well, because Dr. Scott, being acting president, got up from where he was, moved behind the chair where I was sitting, and then went to President Lungu and extended his hand. Wow. At that point, President Lungu had a choice to either accept that or not. The magnanimity was that he got up and received that handshake. And when the two shook hands, the air in that room changed.
Okay.
And by the time that I was praying and consolidating this and saying, now, let's go out there. And I said to them, this should have happened in the morning, because Zambia would have woken up to a place where they would have been rejoicing. But there was peace. But you saw his heart in there. The next morning, we gathered at that government house, and I was asked to come. I was asked, Dr. Scott insisted, he said, no, Bishop, you have to come. I said, no. He says, no, you have to come, otherwise the people will think it's a fluke.
Okay.
So that is how I called my friend, the late priest at Father Chilinda at St. Ignatius. I called him in the middle of the night. I said, look, I've just been to State House. The nation has come together. The two parties have agreed to reconcile. I said, now Dr. Scott has asked me to be present at that event. I can't be there alone. So I said, please, come with me. So together with Dr. Chilinda, with Father Chilinda, the late, may his soul rest in peace, we went there and sat in between Dr. Guy Scott and President Lungu. I'm saying this just so you can hear, this is a good response to what you are asking. This expresses his heart, his desire to see the nation come together, and his joy was, if the nation comes together anytime, let it be under the hand of the Lord. And he kept mentioning, he says, my brother, if I'm a politician, and so he was very conscious of the need for God to work through his servants to consistently bring the nation together and give it a focus.
Okay. Bishop, let me ask you this question. In a moment where the nation, the continent, the world is mourning this gallant son of the soul, what role should you, the faith leaders, and the church play now that we found ourselves in this situation?
Well, our role is very obvious. I'm doing what I should be doing right now, not only reflecting on the legacy of the late President, Dr. EDGAR LUNGU, and celebrating his life in that sense while we are grieving. But our role is to remind ourselves as a people of the fact that life is short. We don't know when we may be called by the Lord. He's been promoted to glory. He's in the presence of the Lord now, but called and taken at a time when we didn't expect. So when this level of demise comes to us as a nation at such a time as this, our role is to keep calling ourselves as a nation to the place of prayer, the place of reflecting, the place of mourning, yes, but the Bible encourages us to mourn not like those without hope.
Okay.
We have a hope in Christ. Our role is to consistently mention and to the nation and to mention to the citizens. The churches will remain open. I'm trusting that we will have some vigils when time allows, and churches will be open so people can come in the sanctuary and just find a way of celebrating this life, but also expressing themselves before the Lord, away from the obvious spaces where sometimes tension grows. And some of those places where tension grows is in the space of politics.
Yes.
And he was a politician, he was a political leader, but a political leader whose desire was that his role in politics would be pronounced by a sense of mission, purpose, and gathering people and caring for the disadvantaged. There was a soft spot, always a soft spot in President Lungu. He liked to reach out to people who seemed like they were out there. And what he said generally is that, me, I'm an ordinary person. He says, I'm an ordinary person. He talked about his upbringing and his life, his mother and so on. And he says, I'm an ordinary person, so I like to take note of ordinary people. So sometimes he says, I'm not complicated, but now you see, I'm in an office where I have to observe protocol and so on, but he says, he always talked about the ordinary person. And so, in the space of politics, our word would be that we all recoil, and with God's help, we somehow acquiesce and quieten the differences and the challenges that we have out there, and realize that when all is said and done, the church is still that neutral place where everyone, all citizens, can come during this period. And I trust that many, many churches will have their doors open, where people can just come and recoil and hear the word of God and be redirected. That is our role. And I want to say, without exaggeration, that people feel free to call on us. Call on us, and call on the church family. There are many, many leaders in Zambia, and Zambia is privileged to have many, many clergy who are of a standing that's way above board, and so they are available to help during this time. We can manage to walk through this phase as a nation, because God has gifted us with spiritual fathers and spiritual leaders who can be and should be the channel of that comfort. And I'm glad that you're doing this here at Camnet, so that we can continue to remember this great leader.
Okay. Bishop, another question. You mentioned the political space. We have heard statements from various political parties, various political leaders during this, from yesterday till today. But what's your word to the politicians during this period as a faith leader?
My word is that our leaders remember the responsibility they have to all of us. This departure of President Lungu is heavy, and our leaders understand that, and so we appreciate the fact that many of them are expressing that, and it's important that they continue to project the humanity that is required to be projected, and so there is need now for political leaders to come together and to be able to reach out to one another. We must make sure that things that we have differed on can, if possible, be set aside for a while, so we can unite and celebrate this life reflect over this legacy. A person at the level of a president carries a message to the nation. When they are living, when they are leading, and they are in office, when they are out of office, and now we can say, even in death, they have a voice that is speaking. And ours must be, for those who are in the political sphere, it is to try and distill those messages and present them in a fashion where they can, the life of the one with whom they share the political space with can become a stepping stone to lessons learned, hopes that can be achieved for the future, and a celebration of the positives, because those positives make us who we are. We have much more to celebrate together that is positive than that which divides us. So for the politicians out there, that's really my word. It's about coming together and acquiescing the things that we may have differed on, and then we come together to say, well, we are one nation, and we allow for a celebration of this life and a grief process that we can all heal from. And so that we can then learn the lessons we have to learn and carry on. We still have challenges as a nation. And if there are principles that we can pick up from this legacy in order to solve some of those problems, it becomes easier when we're actually embracing one another. So nothing is too hard. The language of love is a language of embracing one another. And the Bible says love, actually, to use a word that would be common to all, it buries a multitude of sins. Love has that character, and I think that's what we expect from not just the politicians, from all citizens.
Okay.
That's a requirement for all of us.
Okay. Now, Bishop, talking about all citizens, we are in mourning.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, the nation is in mourning, the continent is in mourning, and the world is in mourning. The Zambian people are looking up to you, the faith leaders, to give them guidance during this trying moment they are watching right now. What is your word to them, Bishop?
For every single citizen, as we began the program, remember, we began by conveying our condolences to the former first family, the LUNGU family, and this is a huge loss. It's a huge loss to all of us. So every single citizen should see this as an opportunity to remember their leader. And as they remember their leader, they must think about what is it that is there to learn as a lesson from the legacy of this leader, and what role can they play as a citizen to sustain that legacy. And to sustain that legacy means you think about doing good to someone else. And so this then takes us as citizens beyond political affiliations. So every citizen has that place to be able to allow the grief to go on, and the healing to come.
So Bishop, we have archived this particular photo.
Yeah.
Just kindly tell us, what was the occasion? What was happening here?
This was the very first fundraising dinner held at the government complex, where we were beginning to raise resources for the National House of Prayer. And so as the board, together with the fundraising committee that was the subcommittee of the board, this had been organized. And you can see the late KK right behind there. Yes. We had been waiting together in the holding room, and when the president finally came, we had that briefing, and we're now on our way. But at that moment, I recall that President Lungu had sort of called out to KK, and he said to him, Mr. President, this is not my show. Then he says, no. Yeah. And so he refused to come in front. No. So he let the president lead. And so we all cracked up.
Oh,
yeah, we all cracked up, and he said no. And of course he did his. He jogged a bit and said, but he's go ahead.
Okay. This particular one, Bishop.
This is the day at the government house.
Okay.
Remember the Friday evening when, with the help of the Lord, I was privileged to chair a meeting at State House, where there was the reconciliation between the team that was with the acting president, Dr. Guy Scott, and the team that was with the candidate, President LUNGU.
Okay.
After that, there was the preparation to announce to the nation the fact that the party had buried its hatchet. And that's how Dr. Guy Scott announced it to the nation, that the party had buried the hatchet, and the warring parties had buried the hatchet, and that they had decided to reconcile. They were now asking us to pray, and after prayer they went on to lodge the nomination, because this was the last day of the nominations for that by-election after the sudden passing of President Sata, the late President Sata.
Okay. This particular one, Bishop?
This occasion was in the showgrounds. This was 2020.
Okay.
December 2020.
Wow.
I and a team of others had just been elected into office for the office of the Council of Bishops, into offices as Council of Bishops, and I had just been elected presiding bishop. This day was the unveiling of the Council of Bishops and the consecration. So I was formally being consecrated into office, and I was receiving the mantle from Bishop Nonde, who had been my predecessor. So that was the day, and President LUNGU was the guest of honor.
Okay, that was at the showgrounds.
At the showgrounds.
Okay, fantastic. Do you have more photos of the bishop and the 6th Republican president, director? If we do have, please let's have them. Some of them, I don't. Maybe the bishop might have even forgotten about them, but it's good to relive the moments and refresh the memory, as it were. Bishop, I know we need to let you go, but before we do that, let me find out from you, now that we're in this situation,
yes,
Bishop, and I know it's quote unquote because the entire nation is looking up to you, the faith leaders. You've talked about the politicians, you talked about the First Family and the Zambian people. All in all, what should we embrace coming from a faith leader? What should we embrace now and moving forward?
At this time, we must be able to observe that any time we have a loss of a life, when the Lord takes somebody from among us within the family, it's always an attention getter. So it's time for us to stop and reflect. As we allow this grief process to take course, we really must stop and reflect. What is God saying to us? Well, one of the things that God is saying to us anytime that there is a loss of life is the fact that we really owe it to Him. In Him we live and move and have our being. So our life consists in Him. In that sense then, we do not mourn as those without hope. We have hope in the fact that as we live in life and we dedicate our lives to Him, as we know that the President had done, then we know that when we close our eyes in this life, we'll open our eyes, we will be in the place where the Lord is resting with Him. So it means that we must be able to reach out to one another, hold each other's hands, and use this as an opportunity to reflect on our being one as a family. Now, this family is huge. It's a family of more than 20 million people from different regions of the country. Each one of us must see that we have value in God's presence, and we use this promotion of God's leader, President LUNGU, who's been promoted to glory. We use it as an opportunity to become an even stronger family, and an even stronger family in the sense that we can tie our bonds and become more united, because now we are reflecting on his legacy. And it also means that if we've had some pressure points anywhere that we have not been able to handle, here's an opportunity to find space, maybe in the background, away from the public, away from the media, away from the gallery, where we could just sit and rethink some things and say, well, how can we handle this now? Where do we go from here? That's how we ought to do this. And so we're simply saying, let's conversate in a manner that builds, in a manner that brings us together. And let me caution, especially the young generation, our utilization of social media. Let's use this to build one another, and not to let out unprintables and language that divides. We're not a perfect family as Zambia, but we are a family that is determined to stay together, and we will do whatever is necessary to work through our issues and somehow get to the destiny that God has for this nation. So my reminder to us, Zambia, is that Zambia is a nation with a destiny that God has ordained, and that destiny we must allow to take its space and charge by us yielding to the Lord himself and allowing him to use us to be tools and channels of healing to one another. May the Lord comfort us. May the Lord heal us. May the Lord sustain us. May the Lord cover us. May the Lord provide for us. May the Lord give us solutions to many challenges that we face, and give wisdom to our leaders, to our president, the cabinet, and everybody else at this time.
Okay. Bishop, thank you so much for coming through and for being with us this afternoon. We really appreciate it.
It is my pleasure, and may God continue to console us.
Thank you. Okay, there we have it, viewers. Thank you so much for having tuned in. We quickly go on a break, but join us. This was a session for Bishop Joshua Banda, who came through to obviously give his experiences with the 6th Republican president who answered the Lord's call yesterday. We go on a break. We'll be right back. Okay, thank you so much for still joining us as we continue to celebrate the life and legacy of the 6th Republican President of Zambia, Dr. Edgar Chagwa Lungu, right here on Camnet TV. We've had a number of guests coming through in the morning via phone and obviously to Camnet TV to give private interviews, obviously that we'll be able to see on our news, and in the days to come regarding the life and legacy of the 6th Republican President. We had Madam Savoy Mboela coming through from the NDC, and also one of the faith fathers, Bishop Joshua Banda, came through as well. You can see that image there, and he explained the significance of that particular image that was taken at the government complex. We continue to look at the life and legacy of former President Dr. Edgar Chagwa Lungu, who led and was overseeing the affairs of this particular country as a president for almost a decade. That's 7 years and some months at the helm of leadership of this particular country. For those that are just joining us, the 6th Republican President, Dr. Edgar Chagwa Lungu, was born on the 11th of November 1956, and he answered the Lord's call yesterday, 5th June 2025. He was a lawyer, a politician, and the 6th President of the Republic of Zambia. Now, messages have continued to pour in as far as Kenya from our neighboring country, which is Kenya, and the President yesterday did send his condolences via a Facebook post, President William Ruto. And also the Republican President, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, on his Facebook page did send his condolences to the former first family and the nation of Zambia. And we have seen that different political party leaders and faith leaders as well, including ordinary citizens, have continued to send their messages of condolences to the former first family. We are aware that there's activity at the Patriotic Front Secretariat in Lumumba Road, where members of the party, sympathizers, members of the public, students, we did see short videos of students rushing to the PF Secretariat to mourn together with members of the Patriotic Front, ordinary citizens as well. That particular bridge right there was built during his term as the President of Zambia, and we'll continue to, that's the Mlungushi International Conference Center KK wing that was established, that was built under his term as president. It is at the Mlungushi International Conference Center for those that haven't been to Lusaka or plan to come to Lusaka, but it is on the other wing, and it's called the KK wing or Kenneth Kaunda wing at the Mlungushi Conference Center along Great East Road. Chinsali General Hospital also built under the tenure of former President Edgar Chagwa Lungu, who was the 6th Republican President of Zambia. You can see him there during a guard of honor. And the faith father that we had here, Dr. Bishop Joshua Banda, did make mention that we need to unite as a country during this trying moment. We need to put all our political differences aside and unite as one. He told us that this particular picture was taken when there were some tension between the Patriotic Front as a party. There were two factions, and the church came together and brought these factions together. We'll be having Mr. Copeland coming through. He is a former member of parliament, and he is also coming here to discuss the legacy of the 6th Republican President. And we're going to be talking about his interaction, how he met the 6th Republican president, and what legacy he has left and what he wants to remember him for. Honorable Kopolande will be here with us shortly. He's already in the studio. We are ushering him on set to discuss how he met, or what were his interactions with former President Dr. EDGAR LUNGU, the 6th Republican President of the Republic of Zambia. Honorable Copeland is here with us. Honorable, good afternoon and good to have you here.
Good afternoon, Mr. Smita.
Yes, Honorable.
Good to meet you on a rather sad day, during a rather sad time for our country. Yeah, it's the power of God at work. He chooses when certain things happen. He gives and he takes away.
Okay.
Glory be to him.
Okay. Honorable, would like to begin by showing you a photo which was taken. I don't know whether you'll be able to remember this particular photo where you and the former head of state are captured in this particular photo. And ours is for you to run us through this particular photo and just tell us what was really happening during, what was the occasion, what was the event, and where was this particular photo taken, Honorable?
Yes, thank you. Yes, I remember that photo very well.
Okay.
It was, I think, in 2020.
Okay.
At the 2019 or 2020, at the Hero Stadium.
Okay.
It was the time of the intercompany relay for that year.
Okay.
And it's just that if you had moved if the picture had been taken a little bit further on the right, Mr. Mpontela would have been there.
Oh,
Elias
okay.
Mpontela would have been there, yes.
Okay.
So,
yes, you can go ahead, Honorable.
yes, I was given the honor to present a shield of recognition and appreciation to His Excellency President EDGAR LUNGU of fond memories for his participation in the intercompany relay. That was a great honor given to me by the intercompany relay, led by my dear colleague Elias Mpontela, because I was one of those that founded the intercompany relay.
Tell us about that, Tony.
As an initiative to raise in the country. It was an initiative by Mr. Elias Mpontela, who you know has been at the helm of athletics in the country for the past 20 plus years. So he started that as an initiative to raise funding, because he realized that depending on government financing for the athletics was not really working, and helping to support the pace of athletics development that Mr. Mpontela had been seeking.
Okay.
So that was the occasion where President Lungu was a participant. In fact, he was one of the runners. He ran, I think, in the 10-kilometer race.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
You know, he was very fit.
Yes, yes, Honorable. Now, Honorable, you have mentioned athletics. Let me find out from you, how was his interaction with for instance, the Zambia Amateur Athletics and bodies that were affiliated in athletics? How was his interaction? From your experience.
Yes. President Lungu was a keen advocate of body fitness as a way to curtail non-communicable disease.
Okay.
He did this and led by example. As you know, he was a keen jogger. every weekend he would go jogging. And he's a man with a military background, as you know.
Yes.
So he was a very, very fit head of state, and was very close to sports fraternity in general. He was an advocate and supporter of Zambia Amateur Athletics Association. And as you could see in that picture, he himself was there in person at the intercompany relay. And not just there to take the guest of honor seat, but he actually did a 10-kilometer run himself, which was absolutely impressive. I think for me, he is one president that added a lot to the development of sport. When it comes to football, you know, he was a big football supporter of the national team, the Chipolopolo. And yeah, those are some of the areas in which the nation will remember the 60th president of the Republic of Zambia.
Okay. Honorable, take me back to the first time you met the 6th Republican president.
Yes. I went to the University of Zambia in 1979, September, I remember very well. And this is how I met President Edgar Lungu at the University of Zambia. We were both students there at the time. When I went to the University of Zambia, I joined an organization called Zambia Young Christian Students, at which, right in the first year, I was elected National Publicity Secretary for the Zambia Young Christian Students movement. And in our team, as the national team, were gentlemen like Chitika Mwambazi, late senior resident magistrate, and other friends of Chitika Mwambazi was in the same class, in the same law class, with President Lungu. Along some of those I would remember was Laura Harrison, who used to be permanent secretary. Winter Kavimba, who is now a well-known political personality. Now Bishop Trevor Mwamba, who is the current president of UNIP, and the likes of Justin Chinyanta, who is a finance guru based in South Africa. Now, we had other friends in the movement, like the late Bernard Sanga. We had other close friends like Donald Chanda. These were all 2 years ahead of me. Now, along the way, I became introduced to one Edgar Lungu, and we became good friends. From
Whilst at UNZA?
Whilst at UNZA. While I was in my first year, he was in third year. Yes, we became pretty good friends. Quite often we'll go and eat together, have meals together in the new, that time, in the new dining hall, red brick, new building there. And we would go and have lunch together with Donald Chanda, Bernard Sanga, Chitika Mwambazi, and them. So that's how I got to know him, and I knew him as a very sober gentleman, but very brainy too. He was, he was one of the top students in law school. In their class. He graduated in 1981 with a top merit. So he was a very intelligent student who did very well in his studies. at the University of Zambia. So that's how I came to know him, and we had been friends from that far back.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Then, Honorable, take me to your political interaction with him. When did you meet him in the political sphere? And again, how was your interaction?
Yes. In the political sphere, of course, I knew him at the time that the Patriotic Front was formed by late President Michael Chifyasata. I came closer to him politically at the time that President Sata died. I recall he sent a mutual friend of ours.
Okay.
Who came to me and said, look, Acting President EDGAR LUNGU would like to meet you.
Okay.
I said, oh, okay, interesting. Where? I was told where I would meet. And when? Tonight. What time? 20 hours. We went, met, and we had a very, very interesting conversation. He had sent to me, and he had sent for me, and this is what he said to me. He says, look, Mana, this thing, you know what has happened? It looks like this thing may end up on me. You know that I have not been in this thing long enough in the presidency and all that. So I would like to ask you to give me a hand, to assist me in preparing me for this role that I think I may have to take on.
Okay.
Of course, he was taking into account my past background, my services as one of the advisors with President Chiluba and one of the key advisors with President Monawasa.
Okay.
Hence, he had the confidence that I could add value to his journey towards the presidency. So that is how we met, and from then on we started meeting and working. We had a team of good gentlemen like Anthony Mukwita, Emmanuel Mamba, Boniface Chimbwali, and we started holding meetings. Meetings were being held at my house.
Okay.
In fact, preparing for the convention and planning everything out. And from there, the rest is history.
Okay.
He's the 6th president, as we remember him today.
Okay, nice. Before we let you go, Honorable, I want to find out from you how, despite remembering him as the 6th president, but let's find out, how should the people of Zambia, the politicians, and you as well, what are you going to remember him for throughout your interactions, your experiences from the days of UNZA to the experiences of being a Republican president? What are you going to remember him for, and what should the people of Zambia remember him for?
Allow me to spend just a little time on this subject, because this is the key thing that we need to honestly and humbly be able to pronounce the legacy of our leaders that may have gone to be with the Lord already. President EDGAR LUNGU was an incredibly humble leader. He had the wisdom of Solomon, of King Solomon.
Okay.
Why do I say this? I had some very deep discussions with him.
Okay.
As colleagues. You recall, at the time President Michael Sata died, EDGAR Lungu was the acting president. Okay? He remained as acting president while President Sata was in England for medical treatment. Soon after the news of the death of President Sata came, you know what happened? He was stripped of the acting presidency. I had a conversation with him after that. I asked him, what happened? He said, you see, we had this meeting and I saw the situation. The situation that I saw in the meeting was, it's either we kill the baby or preserve the baby Zambia. The baby in that instance was Zambia. They asked me to step down and hand over the acting presidency to Dr. Guy Scott. My first instinct was, of course, to resist, but then I thought, this could create chaos in the country. And I don't want to be responsible for the outcome of that. So I looked at the bigger picture. Is it my interest as acting president, or is it the interest of the Republic? I chose the Republic, so I gave it up. Now, that is a person who could hand over power voluntarily. Okay. In the 2021 elections, there were a lot of issues with those elections. There were a lot of questions. Those elections could have been petitioned. You know, some people were killed. We have the case of Konga who was killed in Northwestern Province during the election. President Lungu was sitting in power. He had the power at that time to cancel the elections right in the middle of it. He did not. He felt if he did that, it was going to create chaos in the country. He let the elections go through and finish. Elections are now. He lost the election. Some people wanted him to resist. And as usual, he had the big picture. And the big picture EDGAR Lungu always had was the Republic. It was Zambia. It was not about himself. Of course, discussions were held and all that. And he agreed to hand over. And he went to the stadium where we, the people of Zambia, humiliated a former head of state. We did. With the booing. You know, he was booed at the Hero Stadium when he was going to hand over power to the president-elect then, the sitting president Hakainde. All that happened. He decided, let me move out of the political scene and take a back seat, retire, which he did. And he genuinely retired.
Okay.
And he had no intentions ab initio to come back. But you see, this is how I would put it. He was invited back. He was invited back. And he came back to protect his family and to protect his party. This is a man who had a big heart for this country. There are many examples that you can give about what type of leader he was. He was a leader who gave people jobs in his government and left them to do the jobs that he appointed them to do. He was not a micromanager. Mm-hmm. He let people use their ingenuity, use their knowledge, and he believed they were doing the best for Zambia. Probably that is where some people would say, where he made a mistake by, not paying too much attention with the issues going on cadreism and all that. But I'm a witness to a meeting that took place at State House, which was a joint meeting between members of parliament, cabinet ministers, and central committee of the party. And President Lungu raised the issue of cadreism in that meeting. And he pleaded with his colleagues to say, and he made it very clear, if you do not manage these rising levels of cadreism and harassment of people, it will cost us an election. And in the end, that's what it did. President Lungu is a president who has gone and left a stamp on the history of this country. He would get from me an A+ in terms of his contribution to infrastructure development in this country. Never has there been so much infrastructure development in the country in one particular period of time than when Lungu was in charge. He was the infrastructure man. Look at the roads they built. Look at the rollout of telecommunications infrastructure. When I was member of parliament for Chembe, we put about 8 towers, which opened up connectivity to the rural people of Chembe for them to be able to use internet and to be able to use the mobile phone. So that is a man who believed that development cannot take place in the absence of appropriate quality pieces of infrastructure. Am I saying he was perfect? No, we all are not perfect, but he did his very best to deliver to the people on his promises. For me personally, as member of parliament, President Lungu honored me with 3 visits to the constituency. Now, I don't know how many constituencies presidents visit. Mind you, there are 156 right now. And in the 5-year term, President Lungu visited Chembe 3 times.
Honorable, we're beginning to wind up. Your concluding remarks over this great son of the soul, gallant son of the soul, and 6th Republican president in a minute as we go, Honorable.
Yes, there may be controversies surrounding the period of President Lungu's exit from office up to his death. When Jesus Christ died on the cross, all was forgiven. I'm an advocate of this. My late friend and president boss was a